Hey, what's happening? Welcome back to my channel. My name is D, and today I want to talk about a TikTok that I saw the other day. I think it came out on Tuesday of this week, and it's by an author named Laurel K. Hamilton, who's written several series and has written many New York #1 bestsellers, #1 New York Times bestsellers. That's how you say that. All right, I know what I'm doing. On TikTok, Laurel answers a lot of questions that people ask her about writing, publishing, stuff like that, which honestly I think is a good thing. Or, it can be. I think that it's nice when people who've achieved a certain level of success are willing to share their knowledge to help other people get their success and not like hoard their secrets or whatever. I do kind of take issue with people who, position themselves as authorities on the subject, or the only authority on a subject, or, somebody who has the answer. A couple of people have asked me about doing like YouTube and stuff like that and how they can, start their channels and whatever. And, I can only tell them what's worked for me and how I approach things, but I'm not like the only person who knows how to make YouTube videos. My channel's still like super small, so like I must not know what I'm doing that well, Yeah, I have kind of like a love-hate relationship with advice givers. On the one hand, people sharing their knowledge is very generous, but on the other hand, it can be a way of people trying to assert like authority or power over people who don't have as much knowledge as them, and it might be like an opportunity for them to like scam you or sell you on a course that you don't really need or something like that. But you won't know that you don't need it until you're like already paid for it and you've taken the thing. Anyways, recently, somebody asked Laurel if the best way to start publishing was to self-publish, and she did not like that. Well, okay, she didn't like dislike the question, but she had some things to say about self-publishing. And so what I thought I would do is kind of show you the TikTok and kind of react to it bit by bit, and then, give some more commentary at the end. And I know that some people who, for some reason, like to hate watch me don't have the critical or regular thinking skills to really hear me when I say this. I'm still going to say it. I am not trying to cancel this lady. I don't have the power to do that. And canceling's not real. I'm just some dude giving commentary off of a thing I saw on the internet. It's really not that deep. Take it easy.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. One of my pet peeves is the fact that so many people go the self-publishing route when they haven't really tried to do traditional publishing.
Okay, so first off, I think that it's funny that this is like a pet peeve, because when I think pet peeve, I think of like I hate chewing sounds. And we've talked about like bookish pet peeves or whatever, but they always seem a little bit more like innocuous, but this feels too innocuous. You know what I mean? Like, why do you care what other people... I don't know. It's like they don't really cut into your... I don't know. I don't even get, because it just seems like it just doesn't affect you at all, unless you think that a bunch of people going the self-publishing route somehow taints your success in the traditional publishing route, which I don't think that it does. The other part, it was like they haven't even tried self-publishing, reminds me of, on my old podcast, I interviewed a stand-up comedian named Logan, and we were talking about how I think people said, like, hey, have you ever tried to open for Jim Gaffigan? It's like, yeah, have I tried to open up for Jim Gaffigan? Or, like, my own family has, like, suggested, well, why didn't you even try to get a publishing company to, publish your chapbooks? Or why didn't you even try to get a record deal or something like that? It's like, they weren't gonna take me. And I don't know, I think that there's a lot of assumptions about what somebody wants out of publishing a book, for starters. Not everybody wants to become a traditionally published author because they don't want to do it for the job. They're really happy teaching, and they also want to put out their science fiction horror pieces or their lesbian Star Wars retellings or whatever, And there's nothing wrong with that.
The Guilty Pleasures, the first Anita Blake novel, had over 200 rejections. And that was back 30 years, so there was no real self-publishing to be had. If I'd given up and been discouraged after all those rejections, I wouldn't have the career I have. I wouldn't have just published my 42nd novel. Do not do self-publishing right away until you try traditional publishing.
Real quick, I respect the hustle. 200 rejections, and you keep, pitching the same book and probably making edits and adjustments as you go. I hope, but 200 rejections, that's nothing to sniff at. And now she's published her 42nd novel, and that's great. But I also think that I don't know why, but this is giving sort of like, I had to get a lot of rejections, and so should you. It's almost like when older people are like, why would I want you to have your student loans forgiven? I had to pay my student loans.
Why? Traditional publishing will be able to go to the bookstores and say, will you stock my books? You will not be as dependent on Amazon and other online sources because people can go into bookstores and actually find you on the shelves. It's very hard as an indie author, that is my understanding from other friends who are indie authors, to get bookstores to carry your books.
I don't know anything about this, so I can't weigh in on this like with any experience. I haven't heard anything about this. I think that is a good point, but I don't think that's a good enough reason to write off self-publishing, independent publishing.
Actually, Barnes & Noble, the major chains, are more likely to carry indie books, strangely, than independent bookstores. Independent bookstores carry almost all traditional publishing, which seems like a contradiction, but seems to be true.
Okay, and with this one, I can't really weigh in on it because, I don't really buy independent books from bookstores. I usually follow whatever link the author has in their bio or whatever. I also don't really book shop that much. I buy manga from time to time. But in the last few months, I've kind of slowed down on buying books, physical books, really at all. But I would assume that's an industry problem.
So no, there's no reason to start publishing, self-publishing. You need to go traditional publishing. If you haven't tried it, try it first, then do self-publishing. Now, remember, I'm traditionally published. I have not self-published. I only have friends that have. So I do not know why there might be a set of circumstances where indie would be better to try.
I think it's very strange that she's so passionate against indie publishing, self-publishing, but she has no experience in it. And again, I guess it just seems like we're going back to the idea that she just doesn't like that no one's telling these indie self-published authors no.
But I do know that if you try the traditional publishing and then they reject you, you can do self-publishing. It is harder to do it in reverse. It is harder to go from self-publishing to indie publishing, self-publishing to traditional publishing, unless you have wild success as an indie author.
I've heard that it's difficult to make that transition. One of my favorite authors, Evan Winter, his first book was originally self-published, and then Orbit picked it up after it was pretty successful, and there were some changes made and stuff like that. But I think any indie authors probably heard that before they started their self-publishing journey. You know what I'm saying?
As an indie author, if you have wild success, then traditional publishing will say, come play. But what traditional publishing does that the indies have to do themselves is a lot of marketing. I have a marketing team behind my traditionally published books. I have a publicity department behind me. I have to do these videos because they don't have me in New York to come on camera. But other than that, my traditional publishing teams are behind me, and I don't have to do it all myself. A lot of my indie friends, they do a lot of work to promote their books that other people have as their jobs at my traditional publishing. I'm with Penguin Random House, and they have people whose job is to market my book, whose job is to do publicity, so I don't have to.
That's just bragging, and there's an air of smugness there. I remember a year ago having a conversation with another booktok creator named Deanna, and she's querying because she wants to go the traditional publishing route because she knows that she doesn't want to be an entrepreneur in that way and be in charge of marketing her own books and inventory and all these other like sort of businessy things. And that's something that I was told. I'm not even interested. Like, I'm not like a writer like that, but I was told, once you become an independent author, you're basically like a publishing company of one. And I think that's another thing to consider before you pick either route. And I think that there's something said about learning everything that you can, but if you think that you have what it takes to handle the marketing of your own books and handle being the CEO of a publishing company for one person, then like fucking do it. Hey, what's that? And welcome to everybody's favorite segment in the video, and another thing. Or, oh, I forgot a couple of things. So one of the things that I forgot to mention was that part of what makes Laurel's take on why would you even self-publish before you've tried traditional publishing is such a privileged take is because it discounts like people that the publishing industry generally doesn't touch. So Laurel has like failed to acknowledge or even consider the racial inequality in traditional publishing, where like there's a big difference in pay, creative freedom, even just like access to it. So that's something to be considered. And then the other thing that I didn't even touch in the apology, because I didn't want to talk about the apology, but in it she makes a lot of like statements about how she just didn't know, and there's no way that she knew, and then she talked to her friends who are in indie publishing. And even in the original video, she mentions her friends who are in indie publishing, and it's like, how did you not know that? And it's something I was like, maybe it's worth mentioning. It's like, indie publishers don't exist in a vacuum where they like lock all their secrets. In her apology, she says that it doesn't come up in her traditional publishing circles, and that traditional publishers just don't want you to know how successful indie authors are. And I was like, huh? Because like I know how successful some indie authors are. It's pretty easily accessed knowledge. Like it's just right out there on the internet. So if you don't know this, you didn't want to. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like willful ignorance because you just didn't care. And I think if nothing, I feel bad for whoever these indie author friends are, because it just shows how little their friend respects them, or thinks of their careers or whatever. So that's some shitty stuff there that I just thought I would mention real quick, because I was like about to edit this and then I was like, oh, I completely forgot to say these things, because I didn't write a script. I just grabbed my camera and was like, yo, let's make a video real quick. Anyways, back to the video. Peace out. And yeah, so that's the end of the video. And I think it's a pretty privileged, out-of-date take. And to me, it does come across like I had to go through these hoops to get where I am. You should too. And I think that it's a misunderstanding of what self-publishing looks like today, and how the gap in quality between traditionally published and self-published books is shrinking. I've noticed that myself, just as a reader and a consumer. Now Laurel did put out a follow-up video where she kind of apologized. It's not really my place to say whether or not it was a sincere apology, but it was a lot of like, I'm sorry if you were offended by what I said.
I always admit when I'm wrong. And my assumption that independent publishing is something you do if you don't succeed in traditional publishing is wrong. I have talked to friends that I trust that are independent published, and I have done other research into it, and my assumption is wrong, just simply is. And I apologize to all you indie authors out there if you were offended. I didn't actually say in the video that that's how I felt, but I see, having watched it again and asked some friends to watch it, I see that it came across, and I'm sorry.
Make of that what you will. I just thought I'd, acknowledge that she did apologize. Because again, I'm not trying to drag her. I just wanted to talk about what was said, because I'm aware that there are a lot of like aspiring writers and self-published authors that subscribe to my channel. I just wanted to talk about like I think that every once in a while you're going to come across somebody who's, I guess, like a literary old head, and they're going to sort of devalue the path that you've chosen to take as far as getting your books out there. But really, at the end of the day, if you're, really at the end of the day, I think that if you're doing what you like and you're doing it in a way that feels good, then but I think at the end of the day, like, whatever works is what works for you as far as like getting your book out there. I think if I were to write a book, like a novel or something, which is something that like I guess I if the opportunity ever presented itself, like if I ever got the chance to, or muster up the courage to, like, query agents and stuff like that, I don't think that I wouldn't do it. I just have never really given it much thought because I don't write like that. You know what I mean? Like, I have ideas, but I don't really write like that. I write poems and songs. But, no matter what, I think the main thing is just that your book comes out and you get to tell your story. And so if you're a writer and you're not sure what route you want to take, I guess do some research. I didn't really cover the pros and cons of traditional or self-publishing all that well because I'm not super adept at the publishing industry. Like, I have my opinions based on my experience as a consumer, but I'm not in the publishing industry, so I don't know that much. So do your research and learn all that you can, and be self-reflective and ask yourself, what do I want out of this experience? If you want more creative autonomy and control over what the books look like, and you're willing to put in the work and be a CEO, be an indie publisher. And if you're willing to make more creative concessions and I guess be a little bit more collaborative, and you're willing to get 1,000 no's before you get that one yes, go the traditional route. But either way, it's up to you, and it's valid, and maybe one day I'll be talking about your book on this channel. Maybe. I made the mistake of putting out an open invite very early on in making these videos, and then I got harassed a lot. So that was not, just so we're clear, that's not me saying send me your books. I haven't figured out a way to like make an application page or like do commissions or something like that. I don't even know if I want to do that, to be honest. Doesn't matter. Been recording for almost an hour. I thought this was going to take 20 minutes. Thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you made it to the end. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I do like reviews and talk about shit like this sometimes. And yeah, if you want to support the channel, support what I'm trying to do here, and gain access to exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon. There you'll get an extra rant review video from me per month, as well as like access to my exclusive podcast feed, which includes like audio versions of these videos, or most of them, as well as like bonus podcasts and stuff like that. And you also gain access to my private Discord server, the Don't Fret Club Discord server, where people are talking about books, creative writing, sharing pictures of pets, talking about their fitness goals, all kinds of stuff, man. It's like, it's beautiful how people are just really, it seems like they're really becoming friends, and it's cool. And I'm excited to be a part of that community, and we would love to have you a part of that community as well. And so if any of that sounds interesting or exciting to you, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon. And if Patreon's not really your thing and you still want more content from me, check out my second channel where I'm reacting to Haikyuu and Mob Psycho 100. My channel is called Don't Fret 64. And I think that's everything. I did not mean for this to take as long as it did, and I'm so tired. So thank you so much for watching this video. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out. Before I go, I got to give a shout out to my super duper don't fretters, Cassie, Sable, Knightsmith, and Keisha. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. You're helping me do what I love to do and make content like this. If you also want a shout out from me and gain exclusive access to content you won't find anywhere else, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon.